So I want to talk about this because we always get these questions around cost per clicks. Is it just us? We hear this from clients. Is it just us or are CPCs rising? It seems like every year they're getting higher and higher. Yeah, folks, there's nothing new here. Yeah, it is rising. We do have some evidence here. Now, this is Search Engine Land. They're publishing results from a annual word stream survey, if I'm not mistaken. And this will ascend. This is a nice. It's a nice benchmarking analysis, so that you can see different CPC, conversion rate, click through rate, etc. Those types of KPIs, and whether they're rising. What are the changes year over year, and what's kind of quote unquote normal for the industry that you're in, or the marketplace that you're selling your products or services. So actually, the main thing I wanted to cover was obviously the headline. Yes, costs have climbed 13% year over year in terms of cost per clicks, and conversion rates, though, are also up 7%. This is kind of the way to say, well, is the rise in costs for every click justified? Well, it seems to be somewhat justified in higher conversion rates. Of course, my and Michael's problem always when we hear conversion, is that a sale? Is that a closed deal? Or is that just page views? Because if we're just trusting tracking that's been set up in an account, yes. Michael and I have audited thousands of accounts probably at this point, and more often than not, the tracking is not good. So I always wonder what we're really talking about when we mean conversions. So we're not going to, as Michael alluded to, we're not going to have rose-colored glasses on here. We are going to be grounded and realistic with this and bring our expertise and just kind of evaluate it at face value. I mean, we're not going to be able to know all the details of how the study was done. But Michael, if you can, let's skip down a little bit to those benchmarks. So the overall 2025 benchmark. So cost per click's up 13%, click-through rates up slightly at 4%, so engagement with ads not necessarily climbing at a dramatic rate. Interesting to see that the average is a 6.66. Guys, I want to say one thing from, again, the core of what we do, if you want to do it well, is data analysis. And one thing that I'm always very critical of is when we're talking about averages. You see this in the user interface, average click-through rate, average cost per click. Averages are always going to be skewed by outliers, and marketing data is very, very full of outliers and a lot of fluctuations and deviations from norms. So more often than not, I would love to see averages next to medians, because medians will not be skewed by those outliers. So obviously take this with a big grain of salt. We see average cost per click of $5.26 and you go, oh, well, ours is $2. We're crushing it. That's not a good way to do it.
Because is this even based on like search, or is it as in is it a shopping ad? Because shopping ads you could be paying 20 cents to $1.50 for, versus then you've got $5 here, and then I've got clients who are sending $20, $50 a click. I'm like,
right.
I'm already saying this is ridiculous, but let's not.
Yes. So the value, I think, comes a little bit more below this. This is where we get into industry specific, which is nice because it gets a little bit more nuanced, and most agencies are not going to have all of these data points to be able to see across these industries what are the benchmarks. A lot of agencies are going to be maybe in like 5 or 6 of these, or maybe they hyper specialize into one. So it is interesting if you're curious about breaking out and doing acquisition into new industries. You could utilize this to say, man, where are the edges? Where am I seeing really high conversion rates? Maybe moderate to low cost per clicks. Engagement rates are decent, and cost per leads aren't necessarily that high. Might be a good industry to try to be attacking, but of course a lot of agencies think the same way, and they're probably going after those same leads. But Michael, let's dive into some of this. What just from a quick browse, what's surprising to you? What's something that you did expect? I mean, obviously we all know legal is going to have some of the highest cost per leads and some of the highest cost per clicks. That's clearly the case. There's a summary just below this too, if we want to jump right to that. But anything surprising to you?
Legal services, that's a very low cost per conversion.
It does seem a little low.
I've run accounts that have operated a 40% conversion rate and actually getting those results, and the leads were like $100. But the average, bro, do you think the average advertiser running the average illegal account is actually getting $131 cost per lead. It doesn't matter how, like, if it's criminal law or if it's just trying to like get rid of a parking ticket. This, bro, no, I don't even know what to say. I'm like this. I would need to know, number one, what the actual conversion endpoint is for this business. Like, have they just gone into Google Ads and just like taken that number, or have they actually critically analyzed it, going, okay, these are the conversion points, we'll exclude these, and we've actually tested and measured that these conversion points are legit, not double firing or not firing in two places, as in like one on the actual thank you page, but then every fifth time someone visits this page. These numbers as well look too high for sending traffic to a website. And website conversion rates usually operate around 1 to maybe 4%. And we're seeing much higher than these across the whole industry. I'm like, these people aren't running landing pages. Like apparel and fashion and jewelry, really, are they getting a 4% conversion rate? Like, I run e-commerce accounts for like fashion and jewelry, and they're operating maybe at like 2.5 to like up. And they're making a lot of money, but a 4% conversion rate for fashion. I'm just going to say this. These numbers are incorrect. The cost per lead would naturally be incorrect. In terms of the cost per click, that's more binary, but then you don't know if this is a high intent click or like they're going after broad match keywords like irrelevant traffic. Like, what's the traffic quality like, rather than just the quantity divided by cost. And then click-through rates, that's probably accurate, but they seem oddly high. Like, I don't think the average advertiser is getting a 5% CTR.
Yeah.
With like mixed with these cost per clicks.
Yeah.
Like, to get a higher CTR, you need to pay higher, but these cost per clicks look like, dude, finance and insurance, $3.45. Show me the maestro who is doing this magic and getting an 8.3%.
It's me.
Yeah. I am the magician. But dude, these numbers are just, they're just rubbish. None of this makes sense. Like, I know the numbers of the industry. These do not make sense. So I reckon what has happened is they've literally just got ad accounts plugged in. They're just going, what industry are they in? They just do a drop down, and then it just aggregates the data, and then it's just like, there's no quality checking. Anyway, that's my rant over. I think it's rubbish.
Okay, here's what I think is actually happening here. I think more often than not, it is an aggregate. It just says, I think, 16,000 campaigns in aggregate. And I think more often than not, this is getting skewed by branded campaigns. So that is dragging all of these metrics, click-through rate, conversion rate, it's dragging them way up, and it's dragging cost per lead and cost per clicks way down. One of the 101s of data analysis for PPC is going to be segmenting your analysis by branded and non-branded traffic. Yeah. And in this case, I'm guessing it's just an aggregation of everything, which means we don't really get a lot of transparency in these numbers. More often, it's also, to your point, very channel specific. That's another part of the 101 in segmenting your analysis. Are we talking shopping, standard shopping, performance max? Are we talking display, remarketing, outbound? We're talking YouTube, search, branded, non-branded? What are we really seeing here? That would be really nice to have some additional transparency and maybe have some segmentation that way. But of course, when they're creating these types of studies, that is a big ask from wherever they're getting the data from, because that would assume that the naming conventions, you'd have to have some kind of filter that works for all of the campaigns. All the campaigns use brand, but all the non-brand ones, contain this or don't contain these words. So I think I get it. That's a big ask to have that level of segmentation across whatever 16,000 campaigns. But bro,
is it or is it just best practice that people haven't applied? And laziness and data analysis. Well, naming conventions and structure should be best practice. It shouldn't be like, that's a big ask. And then even just like, if you're putting out something like this, you should have like some sort of like level of data analysis. Like, you could literally go into each of these accounts and get the brand name and then just go to the keyword level and then just literally select all those keywords and add a label saying brand, and then everything else is non-brand. And then you just do everything on a keyword level and keyword performance rather than moving up the scale of ad group or campaign. Like, it's not that crazy, but I shall not throw the stone at the glass house, as I have not done this.
Yes, I really think that the big takeaway here, guys, is I know people are going to look at this and they're going to be kind of a fear of missing out. It's going to be kind of triggering for some businesses. Some businesses are going to look at this and say, man, we're way ahead, or man, we're way behind. And I don't think you should look at it that way. I think this, hopefully, if you guys were paying attention, you're realizing you want to pick this apart and say, yeah, how realistic is this really? Obviously, listen to people like us who've been doing this and look at a lot of accounts and say, these numbers seem way off, and here's why we think that is. Hopefully, if anything, you guys have the takeaway of when you see reports like this, start doing that. Thinking more critically of like, what does this represent? How can we think about the metrics that are being presented? And don't feel like you're way behind or you're way ahead just based on very kind of non-transparent, kind of vague studies like this. Take it with a grain of salt. You get some rough idea of maybe what the general trends are. But again, unless you really know whether this is brand, non-brand, shopping, search, etc., you're not going to get a ton of value from these things, but maybe it gives you some kind of directionality overall into trends year over year. And one thing to be said is that cost per clicks are still going up. So if you feel validated that your cost per clicks are going up and it's just you, you can really say it's not just you. It is across the board based on what we're seeing here.
I actually did an analysis for a client on this, which I'll actually bring up now. The reason why I just want to give this as an example is just make sure all the data's covered. I'll bring this in here now. So the reason why I want to show this over that article we're just looking at is that, like, once again, this is what's this based on? Like, I don't know what the intent of the keywords are, search impression share. I actually did this for a client for one of our team members just because the client kept pushing like, oh, but our cost per click was cheaper 10 years ago. Oh man, like our cost per lead. And it's like, dude, like the costs are going up. So what I did is I exported all the keywords over time, the average cost per click per year, got the top converting keywords over that time, which I've hidden here, and then done like a map of literally the cost per click for the top 50 keywords over that time. And basically can see that over that time, the cost per click increase of individual keywords over that time period. So for this top keyword, it's up 217, 78, 78, 133. You can do this yourself. You can literally just go into the Google Ads report, get all your keywords, like unfilter all your campaigns, pull it into a sheet, like break it down by year, and then you can literally just get the average cost per click on the year, and then just see what the over that time period, if it's the last 1 year, over the last 2 years. Like I can literally do this right now for even just seeing over the last year how much cost per click's up. 17% for the top keyword. So that's just an example of that. Didn't want to derail Cory, but I think the thing that gets me about this is it's too generic.
Right.
It's too generic.
Yep.
And it's just like, it doesn't make sense for your business. So it's just easy just to export the data yourself and just put it in a spreadsheet. Anyway, did that derail too much?
No, that's kind of where I'm trying to get to, is rather than freaking out about these sort of industry level vague reports, and we've talked about this many times, you have to define the benchmarks for your business inside of your account. And yeah, that's easier said than done, because in some cases you don't have years of data, or you're starting something from scratch, or you're like, whether that's a new product, service, some kind of launch, and you don't have the benchmarks to go off of. Okay, then maybe you get a rough idea from something like that for your industry. But even then, it's pretty vague. You're probably going to be better off using something like Keyword Planner or SEMrush, etc. Or Keywords Everywhere.
Dude, I think that's probably the simplest way, is just go to Keyword Planner, download all the keywords that you're targeting, and then just see whatever their high, low range, and low range are. Put those in a spreadsheet, export your data maybe on a monthly basis to see what the average cost per click was for that month, like the last month, but keep it rolling. And then as time goes on, you can turn it to yearly or quarterly.
Yep.
But there's ways you can do this. This article is not the way to do it. But anyway, look.
I know it's going to get a lot of attention.
Realistic,
and that's
mate.
the point.
Realistic and practical, not, just blindly believing things online. Because this is the stuff that actually ruins businesses, because business owners or clients see this like, oh, we're paying too much or too little. Why are we doing that? And then people are like unqualified specialists like, yeah, we are. And then they start doing stuff. And then you're breaking something that's already working. Yep. We don't like that. We like things that work.
That's why we brought this up, Michael.